Hey everyone, how y'all doing today? So I've been trying to come up with some sort of like a regular series that I can do on this channel. I used to technically do like a monthly pickups video, and I kind of stopped doing that just because I was limiting what pickups I was getting. Wasn't getting a whole lot monthly, let alone, even every few months. So I basically relegated those to just shorts and TikToks and things like that. If I pick up a game or two here or there, a minute is probably all I need to, show off what I got. But I haven't really been able to come up with anything until more recently when I realized that some of my more popular videos on the channel, the one that helped it grow pretty substantial over the past few months, in my opinion, are the ones that I do with Windows, just randomly messing around with everything. And so I figured, let me do something themed around classic retro Windows installs and, all kinds of things, whether I'm messing around with alternate shells or trying out software, hardware testing with, retro Windows, things like that. Legacy Windows, I think, would be probably a more accurate term. And so I figured, let me do something related to Windows, and maybe I'll do it on Wednesdays. And I was going to call the series Windows Wednesdays, but apparently someone already took that, Windows developer, although they haven't used it in about 2 years. So I don't know if it would be fair for me to steal that idea from them or not, especially since theirs is more geared towards modern Windows, whereas mine, again, will be towards Windows 3.1, Windows NT, etc. So I'm not quite sure what to call it. I'm thinking maybe just, Windows on Wednesdays. I know it's kind of close, but it's also a little bit different. I don't even have any like proper intro or anything like that, like a title screen for it that I want to do. Because I do want to, if I'm going to make this regular series, I want to have an intro for it. Unlike the majority of my other videos where sometimes I'll have a title card, sometimes I won't. But, so I'm still going to try to figure out what to call it. And hopefully by the time this gets published, I'll have something, even just like a basic title card, as I work on a proper intro for it. If you guys have any suggestions, leave them down below. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just start it off, and, we'll go from there. I mean, I don't even know if it's going to be a popular enough series to invest a ton of time into it, which is kind of why I just have the camera pointing at a screen right now, although I'm going to attempt a screen capture. Hopefully I can work out the frame rate issues, because even though the camera's recording at 60 frames per second, technically it's more like 59.85 or something like that, whereas OBS is capturing straight up 60 frames per second. And the last time I tried to overlay the recording on my, feed and everything, it was out of sync, after like a few seconds. So, which, is frustrating, but it's just, how it is. Maybe one day I'll have a nice camera that can do actual 60 frames per second and, be able to match those two up. But one of the things that I want to kind of go over is some of the software I used to mess around with on my PC after we first got it. And other than the software that the computer came with, I really didn't have a whole lot. And, I wasn't just going to go out and randomly buy software if, I didn't like it. So how do you try software out back in the day? The internet was barely a thing. And even when it was, you're not going to sit there and just download software that's, CD size, because that would take forever. So we had a concept known as Shareware. It was a way to try out software. It's a way to test everything out, demo it, and all of that. Sometimes it will come on like a single floppy disk, as you can see here. It will be one piece of software. Sometimes it will come on CDs, which would be a compilation of various different, Shareware programs. Though sometimes it would also have free software or donationware, things like that. Anyway, I bought this particular one here. It's ASP CD-ROM, Association of Software Professionals. I think they've rebranded over the years, but I picked this one up, and I don't know if this is one I got off of archive.org, because I don't have my original disc anywhere and I can't find them seemingly anywhere. But someone did upload a few of them from 1996, which was, I know that's the year I bought it, and it would have been sometime between June and October. I believe this particular one is from June, so this could be the exact version that I ended up purchasing. I got it from Circuit City. At the time, it was like maybe it was like a mile down the road from where I lived, so I could just hop on my bike and go up there. And I picked this up. I think it was like $10 or something like that. I don't remember the exact amount, but it gave me access to all kinds of software I can mess around with. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to try to do a screen capture. That part won't matter with frame rate being matched up and everything with my audio and what the camera's getting, because there shouldn't be any audio coming through that would, desync or anything like that. But I'm going to go ahead and get that set up, and I'll show off a few things here. All right, let me go ahead and hit record in OBS, and it crashed. That's par for the course. Okay, I think it's cooperating with me right now. Hopefully it'll last long enough. But anyway, you would put the CD in, and clearly this image is designed for 648 by 480. I have the screen resolution currently set to 800 by 600, so it's a little off, but that's fine. The tables should auto-adjust. And basically, it came with a ton of software. I think there's, almost 1,500 titles, as you can see right here. But they've got it separated where they have just DOS, Windows, which would be basically Windows 3.0, Windows 3.1, technically Windows 95 and higher, stuff for just Windows 95 and it's technically Windows 98 and newer, stuff for OS 2, which not a whole lot, unfortunately, and potentially stuff for Apple, although because this is the Windows app, I don't know if it will show the Apple application or not. I have to try it on one of my classic Macs one of these days just to see, because I'm kind of curious. But anyway, let's just go back to all, and let's sort by program names, so alphabetical. And just a bunch of different programs. There's some games and stuff on here too that I would mess around with, and animal clip art. So like here, you could get various clip arts. This is one of the ways you would get clip art compilations. There was no Google where you could just search for images and things like that, or Getty Images or anything like that. And here they give you an idea of what it comes with and how much it costs and everything. But anyway, one of the software that I want to kind of go over today is known as Music Sculptor. It's an early MIDI tracking software, and if you don't know what MIDI is, it was a computer sound format that was also used with musical instruments and things like that. MIDI keyboards, for example, although you can also have some electric drums that could output MIDI, and probably others too. I'm not super familiar, I'm not a musician or anything like that. But this particular one does MIDI tracking, and unfortunately these don't give you like a image preview, so you kind of have to install it, which I did. And it did bring back some nostalgia for me. And as you can see, you have an actual keyboard down here, which you can click on and see if a sound is working. OBS is capturing sound. Volume output on the computer is a little low. Let me see if I can adjust that. Now, you know what? We're just going to use Creative's Mixer. Turn the volume up a little bit here, and we'll turn up the MIDI volume. That should be loud enough. Again, the OBS will capture all of that. And you could sit there, and it's very basic for tracking, so you're not going to have a lot of features like pitch bending and things like that. Those of you growing up, in the late 80s and early 90s might remember things like mods and trackers and things like that. Mods typically coming from the Amiga world, although they did have software available for PC. And that would allow you to use digital samples to create songs and music and things like that. And MIDI was basically, at least early on, was using FM Synth. So like your Sound Blaster 60 and the Yamaha chip that's in there, your Sega Genesis, the Yamaha chip that's in there, you're familiar with that type of sound. Of course, if you had a sound card with wavetable synthesis, you could use digital samples that then would allow you to do something very similar to a mod in terms of sound quality and things like that. Maybe better, maybe worse, depends on the software you're using and all that fun stuff. But yeah, it's basically, just super basic software. Again, it's not going to allow you to do a whole lot of effects or anything like that per track, but you can do basic things like giving a track name, choosing instrument per channel, depending on whether you're using wavetable synthesis or FM synth, at least on Sound Blaster cards. Channel 10 will be percussion with wavetable, I believe, and I think 16 on FM synth. I might have those backwards, so I'll have to clarify that if I'm wrong. It's been a long time since I've dealt with anything MIDI, so. But, let's go ahead and we'll load up a MIDI file here. So I've already got just the Sound Blaster 16 folder, which, has all the drivers and everything. So that comes with some samples, nothing fancy. We'll open up Canon. And, this is already set up to use the Sound Blaster 32, so wavetable synth. And, fortunately, they've got everything labeled, although they've got track 1 labeled here, so it doesn't show the pad, but the harp is labeled strings, dB, bass, another bass, string ensemble, they didn't label that for some reason. Not sure. So, yeah, not a perfect example, but you get the idea. Let's go here to Demo. And let's open up, let's do SFX. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, just different sound effects. All right. I have no idea if that's copyrighted by, it's copyrighted by Creative, but I don't know if that's something that will trigger YouTube or not. So we won't go too far in it. But, what's nice about it is that you can create your own. So like I said, you can actually, let's set an actual instrument, just do piano. But that's kind of tedious. So you can use your actual keyboard though. And it's the top row of letters from tab all the way to the backslash. And then you've got the numbers for the black keys. So stuff like that. Not a musician. I'm going to keep saying this multiple times in this video because I know you're going to critique some of my skills here. I did take some basic piano lessons as a kid, just never finished it. I've got a couple of music keyboards. One is MIDI compatible, one isn't. Unfortunately, I don't have any MIDI cables for it, so I can't really demo it. Otherwise, it'd be a little bit easier for me to be able to mess around with some of this stuff, but it doesn't matter. Again, the whole point of this is just to kind of give you an idea of what I was doing with this software, which wasn't a whole heck of a lot. I wasn't sequencing anything of my own. I wasn't making music. I was basically using it to edit existing files. I don't know where they're at. I don't think it came with Music Sculptor or even with the creative stuff. It might have been another compilation on this disc. It might have been a different Shareware CD altogether, but I remember there were some quote-unquote commercial songs that were transcribed into MIDI. One was the theme from the TV show Cheers, the one that's set in the bar and everything. And although that's an actual song too that they use in the show. So they had it on here and I remember just messing around with it. Hey, let's change the piano to like, I don't know, harmonica or something. And it would be funny, And so like if we go and no, we don't want to save that. Let's go into, where is music. So this is where the Music Sculptor is installed. And so you've got a few different songs here. This is the Entertainer. Everyone's familiar with that one. It's kind of like some ice cream trucks will play a version of that. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, you got For Elise, and you got the William Tell Overture. I don't remember what Dig is, and I don't remember what Fair Sun is. Let's see. Oh, that sounds horrible. Is that something with the app, or is that the actual MIDI file itself? Let's find again. All right. That brings me to one of the issues that I kind of had with Music Sculptor, and that's the fact that sometimes you would have these random glitches like that. Another fun glitch that would happen, sometimes when you would save a MIDI file and then reopen it, it would zero everything out to be acoustic grand piano. Not sure why it did. I don't know if that was one of the Shareware limitations. I don't know if it was a bug in the software. I had heard a rumor there was a version 1.8 out there, maybe even a version 2.0, but I have yet to find them. If you know where they are, please leave info below, although you can't leave links because YouTube doesn't like that, and I agree with that decision. But if let's say you find it on archive.org, just put down the search terms and, I'll look it up and stuff. 1.7 at the very least. And again, it could be a limitation of the Shareware. It could be, one of the things that it does. Hey, we're not going to restrict you in how long you can use this, even though we want you to register within 30 days and give us the money. But if you keep using it, we're going to screw with your MIDI files, which is why it's very important that if you were going to use this software, to actually have instruments under the track name so you could reestablish them. So, but let's go ahead and let's mess around with some of the instruments here. Let's change the string ensemble to a synth lead. Let's change the acoustic guitar to do a saxophone. And let's change the flute to a church organ. And that actually doesn't sound terrible. So at least, for the purposes of this example. But, so that's what I did with it. Just, had fun with it. But one of the things that I really, truly enjoyed doing was messing around with video game-based MIDIs. Not, MIDIs from video games themselves, but recreations of songs from different video games, specifically console for the most part. For example, we'll look at Sonic 2 here. I believe this is the title screen intro. So I'd mess around with them, a little bit, change some of the instruments, things like that. Again, couldn't do much more than that. I could record extra notes if I wanted to, but it wasn't, super effective. Now, I was not a fan of this Calliope lead, whatever. So let's change that to, to a sawtooth. Let's see if that does anything. Oh, maybe it's the voice that was making that sound. Let's go back to that and change this here to a sawtooth. Let's see if that's it. Yeah, that was it. So I would do stuff like that. Now, again, you got to remember that a lot of these MIDI files were created during a time when FM synthesis was the most popular, out there. Not everyone had wavetable synthesis just yet. So let's go ahead and change this back to a voice. And we're going to change the output device to be Voyager Super Sappy FM driver. Although I don't know why it's listed that way. It should just be using the Yamaha LPL chip inside, but whatever. Now you hear that it's playing the piano here because with FM Synth, channel 16 is used for percussion. Now see, using, lead 6 kind of makes sense with FM Synth because it sounds a little bit closer to, the Genesis. Now, if I were good at using tracking software like this, I could probably find the correct instruments and make it sound even more like it does, in Sonic 2 for the Genesis. Wouldn't be perfect because, again, I can't do any of the pitch bends or any effects like that. I can't adjust volume levels, any of these here. So, I'd be a little bit limited to what I can do. But again, this was a great intro, at least for people like me, although I never really kept up with it. But it was a great intro to just kind of learn the basics and things like that. There is an interesting thing, though. While this does seem to support all MIDI files, but as you can see here, one track channel is labeled as asterisk because technically this has all of the channels all on one track. And if you recognize the sound, it's Final Battle music from Final Fantasy V. So now let's take a look and see what that sounds like in FM Synth. And it respects switching to channel 10 for percussion. So it's kind of neat, Let's go ahead and let's try a different one here. Let's open up this here. Let's see if we recognize this one. And if you recognize it, it's the first boss level from Mega Man 2 on the NES. Let's go ahead and change the output device. Of course, we got to change the percussion. It's a little better. Seems like the tempo's a little off. Should be a little bit faster, but oh wait, I forgot I can do this. I think that's right. I think 160. Whoa, why'd I go so low? I think that's right. And we'll stop that. Let's go ahead and I'm going to change this here to sawtooth. And again, we're on FM Synth. We're going to change this to a square. Slap bass, we're going to change to brass and lead, maybe? Lead, again, I don't know. Yeah, it sounds a little closer to the NES. Yeah, close enough. But this is basically what I did with this software a lot of times. Just download a bunch of MIDI files. What was the name of the website? I think it was vgmusic.com. It might even still exist, but if it doesn't, I'll put up a archive.org link and maybe a screenshot. And now I just download MIDI files from there and just muck around with them. And because of the fact that I've got I had and have now again, but because of the fact that I had the AW32, or in my case here, I have the SB32, which similar sound cards. They load up sound fonts, and unfortunately, I don't have any right now because I don't know where my collection is. But I would sit there and open up, for example, let's open this up here. It's called High Res, but I know what it is. It's the Phantom Forest theme from Final Fantasy VI, although if you played it in the West. It was Final Fantasy 3 on the Super NES. And I would download the sound font that someone had created, ripping, sound samples from the game. And if you had the right person, tracking the MIDI and everything, oh man, it was great. But it sounded like the real thing. And unfortunately, I can't demo because, like I said, I don't have that sound font right now, but I can still make it sound kind of good. And I don't know if it's going to be able to capture. Still sounded pretty darn good. And you could, I don't know if you picked up on it or not. It's kind of hard with the microphone, but that little flutter that the flute was doing, this software can't do it because of the fact, again, you don't have that ability. If you had the right software, you could. But the fact that it can recognize that and respect those values, it's pretty neat. So, I wasn't completely missing out as much. But again, when I was experimenting with computers and stuff, this was fun for me. I'd sit there and spend hours just mucking around with these things. Sit there and, it was actually around the time that, the N64 came out, and I picked it up and picked up, Super Mario 64 with it. And so, of course, I tried to find some of the MIDI files if anyone had recreated them, and they did. And it was just fun to play with. So yeah, I know this wasn't a super exciting video. So yeah, let me know what you thought, of Music Sculptor here. Let me know what you thought of maybe this series as a whole. I'm thinking maybe once a month, maybe quarterly, we'll see. You guys seem to like my other Windows stuff, so I figured let's try something new, something different here. If you can come up with a really cool title for me, I'd like to keep the Windows and the Wednesday thing going just because both start with W's. Maybe Microsoft Mondays. I don't know if I want to go that route, but we'll see. But yeah, so let me know what you thought about this. You guys have any tips, suggestions, anything like that? Yeah, otherwise, thanks all for watching. I'll catch you later.